Alright, response video, even though I'm horribly depressed, and I really don't know why. I don't know, it's just strange. I'm usually not this depressed. This is really depressed. But anyway, it doesn't really matter, because from your perspective, the world is all the same. From my perspective, yes, it's all turned into... Yeah, it's like the South Park thing. It's turned into real shit. Everything is turned into, like, this is really made out of... Ooh, it's shit. Ooh. I mean, everything is shit. God, it's just so difficult. Anyway, yeah, just, having one of those years. Yeah, heading into the really good one, too. 2012 ought to be a real laugher. Oh. Ugh. God, I depressed myself some more. Oh, don't do that, Gary. Anyway. Yeah, MP3s for Stickam. Yeah, they're available now. So I guess I'll post this on YouTube. So anyway, there's this guy. I don't know what the hell his name is. Roenazarrek guy. I saw him a while back, and I said, oh, that guy talks rather intelligently. He was talking about free will or some kind of shit, so I guess I indexed him somehow into my indexing crap. And so anyway, this video came up. Maybe it's because it has anti-natalism in it, but whatever reason. So I only played the first 26 seconds. I said, oh, I'll respond to him because he's some little intelligent punk. So we'll see how he does. So I'll start. We'll go back to the beginning. So here we go. Fun. Starts now.
Hello.
Hello.
Roenazarrek here. This is a video
Roenazarrek. Okay. Roenazarrek.
about anti-natalism, and it's going to be quite long, and I sincerely apologize for that, but I've been
yeah, 9 minutes isn't that bad. But anyway, well, it's 10.
a little bit disturbed by just how much popularity the idea of anti-natalism has, particularly on YouTube. So I thought I would make a video on why exactly I think that that's not, anti-natalism is no solution.
Whatever. I mean, no solution. I guess it depends on if you correctly define the problem, right? I mean, turning the key off the engine that's on fire, right? I mean, it sort of is a solution if the engine is on fire, right? So let's just agree what we're disagreeing about. What we're disagreeing about is you don't like that somebody's dissing life and that they're saying bad things about little fun life guy. Because you think the life guy, oh, he's the life of the party. And so what, he drinks a little too much. And so what, he kills and maims and horribly tortures a whole bunch of zillions of creatures. So what, you like the life guy. And you want him at the party. Right? Something like that. Yeah.
So anti-natalism, the idea that having children only adds more potential sufferers to the world, and it is a selfish and perhaps egotistical thing to do.
Yeah, well, just stick to the second part of that, right? Because the first part is really quite obvious. I mean, this is about, there's no point in doing the anti-natalism thing. I mean, the whole point is yes, because the thing is broken, you don't make more broken things. It's like Frankenstein is Frankenstein. It's not a good idea. Don't make more of them. Yeah, not complicated. And the second part, I mean, you really can't argue with the first part, unless you're going to just argue the premise of what life is, and so then we can have that argument. It's a separate subject. But yeah, the selfishness thing is the really important thing. What's the psychology in the brains of the people who are having kids? And they're not having kids because they know the universe needs them, and that it's the right thing to do. They're doing it for selfish, personal reasons, and that kind of is bogus when you're making Frankenstein. Yeah.
Anti-natalists often use phrases like forced into existence and are more...
We use the word like imposed even more, but it's okay, whatever.
Want to call a baby a future corpse. We are on the same page that suffering is bad, and we should be planning and committing resources to minimize it as much as possible. But of course, it's the means of going about it that sets us apart.
Ooh, he's reading. Yuck. The means of doing it. Yeah, well, like I said, you either go to the source, or you can play around with symptoms and all this other little bullshit and do it the hard way, right? I mean, You can clean up the mess after the dam breaks, or you can just take the water out of the other side so the dam can't break. Yeah. Smart.
The goal seems to be that ideally all life were to stop on Earth. The good conscious experience doesn't outweigh the bad in the mind of the anti-natalist, and therefore the universe would be better off without conscious experience entirely. Weak forms of it are intent to merely move in that direction by not procreating themselves and trying to convince others not to. And the more
Yeah, well, the point is the more this becomes a meme, that this whole procreating thing is a personal self-indulgence, like a Lamborghini or something, and that in this environment where, yeah, you just can't guarantee too much, it really is irresponsible, reckless, foolish, stupid, self-indulgent. It's all these negative kind of things. It isn't anything good. It's nothing to pat somebody on the back and say, job well done. No, you don't do that. You don't go to old Dr. Frankenstein's house and say, that's just a magnificent monster you created.
extreme forms wish for the power to destroy the world entirely. The phrase genocidal compassion comes to mind.
Oh, whatever. It's just a pragmatic, practical reality. So if you call it genocidal compassion, if you have to cull some animals to save them from starvation, or you do something else that has a short-term, ugly impact for a long-term, productive, good impact. So yeah, again, use semantics and play little games with words, and then call yourself intelligent. I think that's failure.
Some have said that these are often sad people that have low prospects for finding a lifelong compatible lover with which to find a loving family.
Oh yeah, loving, like again. See, well, you're not saying it. You said some have said. I mean, I don't know why you're doing even this mode of argumentation seems laborious and unnecessary. I mean, maybe you're not all up to speed on the subject, but I think the people you're talking to, because of the title, probably are. And so, I mean, your paraphrase isn't even accurate in the first place, but why even go into this some have said bullshit? Why don't you just make an argument?
Start a loving family, or those that simply have much more they would like to do with their lives and do not have time for a family, and in response to pity would rather say that instead their lifestyle choice is the most noble, and those that have what they would like.
Well, it's totally irrelevant to the subject. There's anti-natalists who have had kids, all right? It's a philosophical realization. It's just a recognition, okay? We have a term like Mother Nature. Well, we could sit there and realize that, well, that's sort of a lie, so let's get real and call it what it is. And so the anti-natalists are basically just saying, let's call life what it is, okay? It's an imposition, and it's not a guaranteed anything but dangerous. Okay, that's the only guarantee, is that you've opened the door to risk and harm. And there's absolutely no guarantee regarding any kind of accomplishment beyond cleaning up the messes you make.
The blind of family are being supremely selfish. This rhetoric, like much of anti-natalist histrionic bits about forcing future corpses into existence,
forcing future corpses into existence. So let's just deny the existence of the future beings, right? Let's deny the fact that we choose to put things in categories, even in very negative ways, like Adolf Hitler chose to put people in the nice, comfortable life category and put them into the concentration camp, horror, awful death category. All right, Anne Frank went from maybe the mother of 5 kids and blah 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 into the dead at 16 or 17 category. Yeah, that's the way the game is played. That's right, we move things from one category to another category by our volition. So it's not about magical animated corpses, okay? That's a metaphor. The fact that we are made out of the dead, okay, out of fertilizer, and we animate out of that. It's a perfectly logical and sensible metaphor. You want to turn it into some sort of zombie story, well, go ahead, cheat some more. But I think you're looking a little bit desperate.
Own pleasure is highly inflammatory, however, and I would much prefer to simply accept that their motivations are as they say.
Oh, so you do all of this crap. So you basically do the slander part, like, oh well, people think that homosexuals are pedophiles, and they think they molest children, and so you make the emphasis, and then you say, well, they can think what they want, but I guess I don't really think that. I mean, that's sort of another game you're playing, right? That was completely unnecessary. That whole 30 seconds didn't need to even exist in this argument. You could have made your own argument instead of saying, well, some people argue. Well, and especially when you're going to defeat the some people argue argument with, I don't believe that argument. Well, I mean, what's the fucking point?
They're motivated by compassion and the desire to end suffering. This priority, in my opinion, puts them on my side. I think that all those that appreciate the imperative to minimize suffering wherever possible are on the same quote-unquote team. And it's a pity that on issues such as this...
Okay, but see, okay. But you see, I don't really get that. So, but it's, again, we're back to how you define something, right? So you should have qualified those words with human suffering, right? That's what you should have qualified and said, human suffering. Because you don't give a rat's ass about all that nature suffering, right? That native suffering. You're not going to do a damn thing about that, are you? Do you have a plan for that, or some kind of wacky way that you're gonna fix that problem? Because without fixing that problem, that's the price of our continued existence. We can't stay here without that stuff that makes our biosphere enduring that carnage. So unless you got some plan for the wildebeest, I think your plan is bigoted, unfair, and sucks.
So completely divide them. Therefore, I'm going to go into great detail explaining every reason why I think that the anti-natalist solution for minimizing suffering is no good. So where I'm coming from,
so you waited 3 minutes to get to the video? Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Different strokes and such.
I truly enjoy being alive, and I love the prospect to learn about this world that I find myself in, and hopefully make a positive impact on it.
Right. So what? Okay. We're going to just use our personal anecdotes again. So then you could have been born somebody who isn't perfectly happy being here, who has horrible infirmants and impediments to them having joyful moments and realistic aspirations of, a happy and comfortable future. Then what? So, I mean, the argument is are you allowed to drag him along for your joyride? That's one of the arguments that's been made. I mean, a simple analogy would be, there's 4 people, and 3 of them want to do something, and the 4th one is going to be harmed by doing that thing. And you all know that the 3rd one's going to be harmed, and you're basically going to have to drag it along because it holds one of the tickets, the key ticket. And if he doesn't go, then none of you can go. And so you're going to say, yeah, let's just impose on him the unpleasantness because of our choice. And I just think that's bullshit.
Others' lives better, and I want to be able to get as much out of it as possible. I want to make friends, bring people closer together, and erase misunderstandings that pull people apart. I see how fast the world is changing, and I know that there's potential for massive harm and massive good.
There's potential for massive good. And what would the good be? Oh, that's right, be eliminating the harm, right? So again, it's just a silly kind of game you're playing. All you can do is clean up the mess. That's the only good job on Earth. The only good job is a job cleaning up the bad job that is existence itself.
I think that everyone should be alert and trying to guide the world in the right directions.
Well, I think that's the whole point of the conversation. So again, you're really not getting to any good points here. That's sort of musical.
I believe that it's not difficult to find purpose in life because there's so much that needs doing. And I don't think that's...
Well, that's not the argument. Again, the argument isn't whether because you're here in the stupid maze game and you're see the victims and you're doing what you can for the victims. We're talking about whether we should turn the game off, whether we should close the game, not whether the rats that are in it should be nice to the other rats. We're already, I think we're one ahead of you on that argument. So that's not the argument. I mean, it's kind of an irrational argument to say we need to keep the game going so we can keep cleaning up the mess. I mean, that's kind of bogus. So you got to come up with a non-mess cleaning up job for human beings. What do they do here besides clean up messes? And if there is no other job, isn't that sort of a problem?
necessarily a bad thing. But perhaps I'm an optimist. However, when people tell me that they think life is pointless and not worth living, or that it's a pity that it exists in the first place...
Yeah, these are different things, so why lump it all in the same category and just say, well, when people say apples are apples and oranges are oranges and kumquats are kumquats, no, deal with the individual things. Separate these arguments. One of them has to do with the innate non-accomplishment ability of life itself, that it does not scratch a universal itch. It does not rescue people from horror. It does not save something. It doesn't do any of those things that are natively to us understood as good things, which are preventing harm. Creating life does not prevent harm. It opens the door to the risk of harm. That's the argument here. Separate that from, I personally have a headache and think life is stupid. I mean, these are all kinds of different arguments. Come on, do better than this. This is not a very good argument you're making.
I only think that the problem is not with the world, but with them. You simply do not have to feel that way. More relevant
again, it's not about feelings. It's a philosophical argument. And yeah, there's no way that philosophy doesn't affect the way you feel. And if I believed in a magical unicorn, that was going to make everything okay, well, yeah, of course I'm going to feel kind of good because I know everything's going to be okay because the magic unicorn is going to take care of it. I mean, if I believed in Superman, well, and he was going to come and he always saves the day, yeah, life would be a lot less scary. I mean, he's going to, I get a cold and Superman shows up, whatever. And, cold goes away, whatever. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, you can't help but feel better about life. And if you perceive life to be 4 billion years of a DNA molecule whacking off, it's, you're just not going to feel good about that. It's going to be kind of, ew, that's kind of gross.
I'm thinking about the bit about forcing future corpses into existence. There are a lot of reasons that I would find reasonable for my parents not wanting to bring me into existence. Without existing, I wouldn't have any rights to consider, so it's not like that would be tantamount to murder.
Oh, again, these are just semantical arguments. The non-existent do have rights. People are going to live here 500 years from now. We could assume or presume that's a likelihood if nothing takes them out. Well, it's not a likelihood. Let's just say it's a possibility. And we would be aware of their rights. There are obligation not to make the plant unlivable, not to borrow or steal all of their money. I mean, basic things, we could understand that these would be obligations. So let's not argue that you only have rights when you exist and raise your hand and say, I have rights. You have rights when you're a baby, and you have a rights, throughout your you have a right to your, the authority over your existence. And one would argue that you also have a right to not be obliged to exist.
As some pro-life rhetoric veers close to suggesting, and they may not have time to invest in children, may not have the resources, may not think they would do well as parents, etc. Any number of reasons. However, the notion...
Well, again, this is all kind of babble and bullshit. We know statistically what the game is, so it doesn't. Who cares what people think? What they think has nothing to do with what the actuality is. I mean, a lot of drunk drivers don't think they're drunk. Come on, fucker. This is just basic concepts you're tripping over here.
that my welfare would be among the top considerations in my never having been born strikes me as absurd in the highest degree. That they would have loved
I don't even know what that means. It's absurd to contemplate your existence and find it lacking any kind of credible authority because you were basically birthed by a bunch of insipid bozo the clowns. I mean, literal. Look, if literal clowns gave birth to you, you wouldn't make any judgments. You would just sit there and do whatever the old clowns tell you to do. You'd get in a little car and, you know, run around going yuck, 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 yuck. I mean, you really would. You wouldn't pass any judgment and say maybe they're fucking stupid. You wouldn't? Oh, I think you would.
Children. But they didn't bring me into existence just because I might not have liked existing. They didn't do it for my sake.
Well, then that makes them assholes. Right? Yeah, that's right. It's kind of serious business. If you're not going to do it for some sort of pure reason, if you're just doing it for selfish reasons, yeah, you just don't have a right to whack off and smear it in somebody else's face called your child. That's right. You just don't have a right to do that. That's called fucking bullshit.
Frankly, I look at the astronomical odds against my ever existing in the first place with a bit of mild anxiety. I am alive now, and I can take myself out of existence any time I wish, humanely, I might add. And it just so happens that
it just so happens that this is the same old cliche mumbo jumbo that you're never going to really do these things, and so but it's all big talk. Like, oh yes, it's so easy to just decide to kill yourself, and you just snap your fingers, and everything's fine, and there's no emotional trauma whatsoever in trying to get over your own personal addictions and attachments to the people on this planet, and there's no possibility of things going wrong, and you end up being in a hospital with tubes in your eyeballs and all that kind of bullshit. No. I mean, just, yes, be trivial, be trite, take something that people fail at every day with horrid consequences and make light of it. Because you're so brilliant, you got it all figured out. Even Jack Kevorkian, a smart man, a doctor, okay, wanted a legal, efficient, functional way to kill himself. And he wanted it for himself, because he found need to have such a liberty and a right. Asshole.
But that's the last thing I would want to do. The decision of my existence is in the world, active at every moment and firmly within my grasp.
Yeah, there's going to be a moment when that's not going to be in your control. Something gets out of your control, and then all of a sudden you're in a shitty position, holding a shitty a hand of cards, and all this is trite trivializations. You're going to regret speaking them, I believe.
Folks had been convinced by the anti-natalists they would have never put that decision in my hands, forcing me to never experience existence for my own good. I realize that philosophically speaking about
for your own good, again, you can't need when you're dead, okay? You can be subjected to danger in a future, right? I mean, you really do understand that, right? You have a present and you have a future. The past is irrelevant. All right, so there's you can't be denied the satisfaction of a desire that doesn't exist yet. You really can't, because desire is very different from the satisfaction of desire is very different than the enduring of suffering. The two things are not opposites. They aren't the same exact thing, just inverted. Okay? They're functionally different. So one thing, to be spared suffering, is always good. Whether you're dead or alive, whether you're anything, it's always a good. It can never be anything else but a good to not have suffered some unnecessary suffering. The word unnecessary. It's always good. All right? The fact that you would have a joyful little laughy moment or something, first you'd need to have it, and in the time you're needing it, you've used up its value. So it doesn't live beyond that need moment. Once the need is gone. Its value is gone. It's not an internally valuable thing, a joy, because it's always going to be tied to the point that you actually need to be joyed. You don't need to not need suffering. It's an innately existing condition of vulnerability. Something like that.
Existing individuals is a bit dodgy, but this is hypothetical, and if it completely throws you off or strikes you as completely invalid, such as to invalidate any line of reasoning attached to it, then simply disregard it. Disregard the argument, there are more coming. In a nutshell, on the question of existence, making that decision for someone else when they will be perfectly capable of making it for themselves is not noble.
Perfectly capable of making it for themselves. Well, like I say, if you're going to talk about having a realistic right to kill yourself when you're 5 or 6 years old, then okay, we can start having a conversation. But how does this apply to chimpanzees, any of the other great apes? How does this apply to any of the other mammals with, fully elaborate, sensitive consciousnesses? How does this help them at all? No, it doesn't. That's right.
The next issue is that suffering can be minimized. There is such thing as progress.
And the easiest way to minimize it is unconsciousness. Yeah, that's right. Sleep forever. Peaceful, dreamless sleep. Well, even dreams, not quite as heavy in the suffering bucket.
Has never been more apparent in the modern age. For example, a black woman born in the U.S. today, barring extreme circumstances like being kidnapped, cannot expect to be forced into sexual or physical slavery or into poor ways and dangerous.
Well, there's no point in talking about how much better everything is, especially in a culture that's completely dominated by taking, some sort of pharmaceutical to get through the day, or drinking, or some other kind of medication that people are taking just to get through their mediocrity, their crud shit lives. All right, the 50-hour work week and all of that crap, or the 70-hour work week. So again, all this talk about how everything is just so charming and wonderful is just a big pile of fucking shit. Yuck.
Child labor, and is considered equal under the law to everyone else, and may have a voice that people listen to and a vote that politicians pander to. Furthermore, she will receive mandatory public education and get a baseline at least grasp on the nature of the world that would have deeply embarrassed Aristotle. As powerful information technology spreads, oppressive regimes are followed.
And none of that does anybody much good, right? I mean, Aristotle was ignorant of a lot of physical facts, but the point is Aristotle was aware of the one that matters, which was, let's contemplate what the fuck this is. So again, giving kids facts in school isn't going to do them much good if we give them no context. And we give them no context because we say that's religion and you can't teach religion. The religion of DNA Borgery. The religion that your psychology is completely manipulated by these teachers and by these social memes and by these idiotic cultural norms and by these preposterously silly traditions. No, you can't teach a kid that they're full of fucking shit. All right, and that's the sort of necessary thing, and that's the little magic that Aristotle had that the rest of these intelligent human beings completely lack, is any context, understanding that they are just a little fucking needball running around reckless, and that they are just dangerous. They're just dangerous little assholes.
From Soviet Russia to Gaddafi. The tools of enlightenment are spreading across the world, becoming accessible to poorer and poorer people. More and more of
the tools of enlightenment. I mean, just the way you say that, the tools of enlightenment. I wonder what you think enlightenment is. I would argue that enlightenment is getting over your fucking self. Enlightenment is getting rid of your little God delusions and your little DNA delusions. And just recognizing that you're playing a game that's way too fucking dangerous. A game that's more complex than your skill level, or however you want to describe it. But yeah, you're just not in the position to play fucking God.
The world is at our fingertips, and furthermore, the potential to alleviate suffering. Think of when we had no germ theory of disease, no vaccines, when a plague could utterly decimate the population of an entire continent, radically and humanely, I might add. Through the
Yeah, but let's also concede that a lot of people died a lot quicker. Yeah, they weren't able to keep you going, for months and years in a horrifically dilapidated even condition. And so, I don't know, adding up just suffering points, if you go around the world and just measure the qualitative state of the average existing human, let's just take a sampling of their qualitative state. I'm not too sure it's too fucking good.
Long course of human history, and the many orders of magnitude longer history of life on Earth, there have been great and obscene depths of misery and suffering, and yet very few, if any, ideas or potential to eliminate all life.
But whatever, ideas or potential to eliminate all life. Like I said, it all could have gone with one of those meteor impacts if the meteor was bigger. I don't even know what that means. I mean, you're here by quirk, by circumstance, okay? So let's not argue that there's no way it could ever be different. There's no way the Earth could be sterile. Of course it could have been. It could have happened that way. So that's bullshit argument. And again, you've just conceded the fact that most of the suffering exists somewhere other than in modern man's consciousness. So what's your solution to those billions of years of, hundreds of millions of years of feeling creatures, tooth and clawing each other?
The anti-natalist goal, I believe, is an enlightened one. And those people, it's not something that uneducated people or those not prone to contemplation find appealing. And those people seem only to be connected and in abundance in this day and age. I do hope the thick irony is clear to all, because I am convinced that suffering is least widespread in this day and age.
Well, okay, you're convinced. I'm like I said, frankly, I'm not convinced. We're older, we're laden with more miseries, our lives are more empty, moment to moment. We can see the future, unlike the past. They couldn't really see the future. We can sort of see the horizon, and we know that there's nothing magic coming over the horizon. Where those people did think there was magic, they knew there was always, like, Jesus was actually coming tomorrow, and they could actually believe crap like that. But yeah, I mean, raw, just earthy, I mean, there were people who, like, literally screamed louder than they do now. But I'm just saying, if you add up the dull ache that the human race has now, I'm saying I think it's probably, in terms of hours spent in that state of being, it's probably a big number. Yeah.
Potential for minimizing it is at its greatest. The vast majority of this happened in less than 1% of mankind's history. Think of what could be accomplished in another percentage.
Yeah, what could be accomplished? Again, clean up more of the suffering. Let's make more pills. Let's get human beings more just completely psychologically deluded into existing a stupid mediocrity for absolutely no accomplishment but some contrived delusion of accomplishment. And that's all you have, Junior, is a contrived delusion that you're accomplishing something. Every night you go to sleep and essentially disappear as a consciousness, and I think you can figure out for yourself that if you never came back, it wouldn't make any fucking goddamn difference. That you weren't doing something horrible when you were out of touch with your consciousness, that you weren't in some bad place. The fact is, you were in some kind of very safe place, and that you cannot possibly miss what you're not going to get. Just like you can't miss the, 999,000 years you're not going to live. I mean, you don't sit there and lament, oh, I'm not going to have a 967th birthday. Oh. I mean, it's really not going to hurt you that bad, is it? The thought that you're not going to have your 997th birthday. I mean, that one's really not going to get in your way, is it? I don't think so.
Or even just another few hundred years. There exists perhaps not an overwhelming, but at least a significant chance that we could reduce the suffering on our tiny planet to a negligible level compared to what exists even today.
Well, compared to, clever word. Yeah, whatever, fella. Again, just keep talking like first that you're going to get there. Because we see sort of how comfort's being doled out, okay? It's not being doled out in the third world, all the comfort pills, okay? It's just in the first world. And most of that comfort is just to satiate any sense of reality, is to get people out of any kind of notions of doing any hard thinking. It's to get them to chase, Santa Claus sleighs and stuff like that.
If we press forward, what happens if we give up instead? Say birth rate drops dramatically, though even in anyone's wildest dreams it could not be expected to completely stop. Or
well, whatever, it's not a wild dream. Again, you have legislation, you can wind the thing down, and you can do it rather authoritatively, especially when you have a majority of the human beings who believe that's the correct and the proper and the appropriate action. So again, you can't presume a failure. You just can't. You don't have any evidence that it can't be done. You just say it like it can't be done. That's all you do. That's not evidence. You got to demonstrate how it can't be done.
Structure would collapse, public education would cease, and soon civilization would be unrecognized.
Well, that's just so silly, right? The internet would come crumbling to a halt. Why? Because we'd have 10 times, 400 times the bandwidth the people needed. What will people do if they have 7 extra houses to live in? And 7 times more food to eat? And 7 times more hospitals to go to, and 7 times more electricity plants. I mean, come on, it's just bullshit. Winding down is not more expensive, idiot. It's cheaper.
What's more likely, that everyone on Earth would continue virtuously avoiding procreation until the extinction of mankind, or that in enough generations the entire goal is given up in the urgency of survival?
The urgency of survival, whatever that is. So you're going to just defend some sort of, because people's penises will get itchy. So that's philosophy now, right? The urgency of survival, whatever that means. That somehow we'll have to make ourselves a slave generation to wipe our ass. That there's no way we could figure this out and say, well, look, I'll volunteer to die when I'm 55 years old. And that's the day I go. You could even put a little robot in there that blows my brains up if I go too far. I mean, there's ways of doing it, idiot. So this is just bullshit. Like we somehow have to, there's no way to end. There's no way to gracefully exit the stage. Because somehow the stage will completely crumble if there aren't feet bouncing on it and keeping it down. It'll shoot into the sun. I mean, you're just bullshitting.
Even if the human race disappears entirely, have we really made that much difference in the amount of suffering on Earth? The primary cause of all animal death is still being eaten alive.
Right, so again, you did absolutely no research on this subject. I mean, I don't know of any anti-natalists on YouTube, anybody talking about this subject who hasn't mentioned, at least peripherally, the animal problem. So again, this is just fail.
Then, after millions or perhaps billions of years, our curious ape relatives will most likely begin to fill the sentient niche we've left vacant.
Well, another bogus theory. There's absolutely no evidence that anything would ever fill any niche. There's every bit of evidence that dragonflies stayed exactly the same for 300 million years. They didn't niche, they didn't change, they didn't do a damn thing because they didn't need to. The great apes are a minor organism on Earth. not terribly successful, and they would just continue to do exactly what they're doing, which, because the biology demands nothing else. So this is just bogus. And the biology is unlikely to provide the road anywhere else. It was a weird circumstance that gave us the potential to do language when we didn't have a single word in our vocabulary. Now that was a strange occurrence. That isn't evolution's usual path. So that's not the common experience. That's the uncommon.
And the whole process begins again.
Says
Achieving the
you.
level
No
of
evidence.
civilization we have today requires a steep uphill climb of many hard periods and massive amounts of suffering.
So this is just a scare tactic. Oh, even if we stop it, it's all gonna start again. No, that's not the truth. It's based on no evidence. You have no evidence of this restart. Nothing to base it on. Not a bit of science, not a bit of anything to base it on. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Complete bullshit. Bravo.
To try to give up at this point, of all places, strikes me as absolutely insane, as well as futile.
Well, I guess I'd rather be insane and futile than an abuser of language, a distorter of reality, and a bullshitter.
And a particular pity when we have so much potential yet ahead of us.
Potential what again? What's your potential, Superman? Spider-Man? What's your potential? What is your potential? 5-dimensional supersonic gobble vision. You know, where you actually feel the beasties chewing on your flesh in the theater. What? You know, double, triple maxi pads? Come on, fuck you.
The future does go somewhere. And our technology gives us such destructive power that we cannot control it, and we are consumed in a massive climax that will be the human race.
Yeah, well, the most likely doom is the fact that there are way too many people to sustain this planet in its current condition if they all expect their share of civilization. They all expect to be able to drink down a bunch of that old crude oil every day. Yep, we're just not going to have any of it anymore.
Isn't that a more final solution than the aforedescribed anyway? Hopefully it's food for thought, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, whatever. It's bullshit for whatever, puking. Yeah, no thank you. You know, yeah, really bad job. I'm disappointed. I thought you'd do better than this. I really did. I was a little more hopeful there would be a better argument than this. Oh, you can't wipe out life on the planet. There aren't any sterile planets in the world. Chemistry wants to be alive. No, none of that stuff's true, silly person. Nothing in the universe is crying for life to exist. You know, the planets are going, oh, there's no Martians, there's no Venetians, there's no Plutonians, there's no Saturninians. Nobody's weeping over that. No one's screaming in pain over that shit. It's a simple truth. This is a sloppy, stupid, idiotic game, and only morons would want to play it at something else's expense. Only a fool and a turd and an asshole would accept life on those terms. Yeah. So you suck.